Hello again. It's come round again.
It has.
Our live. And this time our live is all about resilience. But we just thought we'd start with a couple of shout outs. So we have a lady called Carolyn from Germany, and she just gave us some lovely feedback. She said that we are her favourite Instagram account and she loves listening to the lives and just sort of getting some really authentic and down-to-earth content about the early years. She did acknowledge that she slightly struggles with my Mancunian accent and your accent. So
your Geordie accent. All right, I'll try and enunciate a little clearer today.
I don't think that'd be possible with me. I'm a Manc and that's it. So no, that was lovely to hear. And also our outfits caused offence last week. Well, not offence, but apparently we were clashing and causing drama to people's eyes. So we've decided to coordinate, and I've left Alistair to be the flamboyant one. I don't think you do sort of plain...
I do. I will for next time.
I really don't think I've ever seen you in anything that's not flamboyant. So anyway,
listen me.
hopefully we're not clashing this week and it's a little bit easier on the eye. Anyway, moving on to resilience, I think maybe, again, if we just start by exploring what resilience is in the early years, and that's where you come in.
Yeah, well, resilience is a really interesting concept, and it's a word that we use a lot. But actually, the definition of resilience can be quite hard to pin down, because resilience is a kind of state of being. It's also a disposition for learning. But I think probably the easiest way to describe resilience is the ability to bend without breaking. It's the idea that on a small scale and a large scale, that through your life you will come across day-to-day events or large life events that will cause you to think differently, possibly to cause trauma, both large scale and small scale trauma. And it's the idea that if you are resilient, you have mechanisms that you've already developed that will help you to cope with whatever event that may be. So yes, you respond to it, you bend because it affects you, but then you bend back and you don't break. So what we're trying to do, I think, is to help our children to develop as strong a core resilience as we possibly can, so we can prepare them best for a future that we don't know and can't anticipate, but that they're well prepared for.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about having no idea what the future will be for our children, what their future jobs will be. They probably don't even exist yet, many of them. So these slightly nebulous skills of things like resilience really, really matter in the early years. So how can parents go about trying to help their children become more resilient? And I know it's a really deep sort of conversation to have, but just as an overview to begin with, because we've been inundated with questions this week from parents, lots and lots of sort of key ones that I thought we could pick out on, but just as an overview, what are the sort of key things to think about?
There's a huge link between your ability to be resilient and your levels of confidence. So what resilience is really is a bank of strategies that you can call on when unexpected things happen, or things that cause you to be upset or have trauma. So if you've got a lot of experience of having had to solve problems, or you've seen modelled how other people have solved problems and strategies they've used, then you're far more likely to have those at your disposal. Because we know, like in times of shock or trauma, that the front bit of your brain, which tends to be the bit that kind of creates the new knowledge, the proactive bit, shuts down, and it kind of flicks into back brain, that kind of primitive fight or flight or fight. I need new teeth for next
Fight or flight.
Fight or fight. So what you want is in that kind of back brain, lots of stored knowledge and lots of strategy. So you're not having to invent it on the fly. So the more opportunities you can have to have those strategies in place, then when you hit those times when you're using your frontal lobes less and your back brain more, you've got more retained strategy in there that will support you through.
I think it's really interesting to look at the how confidence impacts resilience, because again, a common thread throughout nearly every live we've done is about letting children have a go and not being too quick to be in there and saying that's not right, do that again, and just backing off and saving the moment for the right time and really helping children become confident learners.
Yeah, I was watching a little girl do some painting the other day, and she had it set out where she had a saucer to put the paint on, and the paint was in tubes, and then there were various brushes in pots, and she was just left to it. So she had to try and flip the top off the pot, which she found difficult because it was a hard flippy top. But then when she turned it over, she dripped on the table. Then she didn't turn it back over, she just kept moving it, so then she dripped on her legs. And the adult that was watching it was probably thinking, oh, but they just didn't say anything. They're like, that's great. And eventually she got it to the plate and squeezed too hard and loads of paint came out. But even in that little transition between I'm helping myself to the paint that I'm going to use, there were lots of learning around cause and effect, but also in terms of the resilience aspect, that if you drop a bit of paint on your leg, it doesn't matter. If a parent rushes in and says, well, hang on a minute, oh no, that's on your good trousers, oh no, we'll never get, quick, whip your trousers off, get them in the wash, I'll do that for you, let me squirt the paint out. What you're taking away is a lot of the development, but in terms of resilience, what you're not also doing is equipping that child that when things go wrong, I've got a strategy to sort it out, or it doesn't matter. They then begin to think, well, when things go wrong, this is really important, and then bad things happen, and my adult gets stressed, and I then feel stressed, and they make those negative kind of connotations. So lots of what we talk about in the app and through the activities that we do within the streams is about that idea of empowering children to build their skills, but also to help them to build that resilience.
Yeah, I think, can I dip into a few of these questions that we've had through? Because it ties in quite nicely with this one, which is that my child often gives up on activities halfway through and does tend to show quite a lack of resilience. These are parents' words, not ours. But just that idea that they're not really sort of engaging or they're giving up when the going gets tough.
And things are complex, so there's not like a simple answer to any one question. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it will be about resilience, and lots of times it'll be about engagement. The fact that sometimes children engage in activities that they're just not that interested in. So sometimes it's about when you broaden the activity and link it more to children's interest and link it more to the process than the outcome, you get far more engagement. Because again, you know, when I've worked in early years settings, I have watched children often struggle with really quite difficult tasks, often around dexterity, where they will try and try and try and try because they really want to achieve the end goal. Or you see children who are building towers out of blocks that are really tall and they wobble and they're going to fall, and then they fall and then they go and build them up again, and then they fall and then they build them up again. They're not saying, well, it's falling down now, can't be bothered with this, I'm off. Because they want to engage in the process of building the tower, or they want to engage in the process of creating whatever construction they're doing. So sometimes that is about children being able to enjoy the activity they're doing. But there's also a lesson in life that if you really want to achieve something, then you're not always going to get it right first time, and that you need to keep trying if it's something that's important to you. And one of the other key things about building resilience in children is the fact that we as adults can model good resilience. And that's not saying you've got to keep doing it, you've got to keep doing it. It's about saying, well, sometimes I find it's difficult, or sometimes I feel like this. And when I feel like this, this is what I do. Or when I think about this, then this is what I do. So even though you are not doing it for the child, what you're doing is modelling the fact that you're a fallible adult. And you're saying that I've got strategies that help me to cope. And the more that you do that, the more that they kind of go in by osmosis and help to enable your child to have kind of similar strategies.
We talked actually about adults not just modelling, you know, that side of resilience, but also self-care, and actually recognising that, you know, sometimes the going does get tough, and sometimes the strategy is actually just to go, whoa.
Yeah. And again, it's about being age appropriate. So self-care is another really important strand of building resilience, so that children understand that it's really important to take time to recharge your batteries. And there has been a culture in a lot of our society about how the grind is really important, and you're only really achieving if you're working really hard, and you've got to work from, you know, dawn till dusk because that shows you're really committed. But actually what we know now about how our subconscious works and our mental health is that kind of you're only successful or you're only doing it properly if you're working to capacity all the time is really bad for us. So again, as an adult, when things are difficult, it's not about necessarily having a big cry in front of your child and saying, I just can't cope any longer, because obviously that's not age appropriate for their development. But it's saying things like, sometimes, you know, daddy feels a bit anxious, or sometimes daddy gets a knot in his stomach, or sometimes daddy feels like, you know, his job list is really long. So what I do then is I know that's my body telling me I need to go and take however long, I need to go and spend some time on my own. I go for a walk outside, I read my book. I would avoid mentioning I have a glass of wine. The positive things that we do to support our own mental well-being. But the fact we are really telling our children that to have resilience, you need to recognise that you need time for reflection and recharging, and to model that as adults, which is often more difficult than it sounds.
Yeah, but again, that idea that we're not super adult or super mum or super dad, because if we're setting these expectations that it's always easy and that we're always on it, then we're kind of modelling that for our children as well, and we're not giving them any downtime. It's
that balance where you obviously, when your children are at the age that we're talking about, they need to know that you are in control because you're their parent, you are there to kind of catch them, but also that fine line between saying, but, in a realistic world, in realistic parenting, there are times when even mums and dads and grandmas and granddads and whoever it may be sometimes find things difficult, and that's okay. But when we do find things difficult, this is what we do to try and sort that out.
We've just had Kerry B come through on the iPad here saying, if only we were all as resilient and had the can-do attitude that children have.
And that's a really valid point, in that resilience is something that lots of children are born with an innate sense of, and it's often society that squeezes the resilience out of us, because we have been trained that this is how we need to respond and this is what we need to do. But actually what we can do, obviously, is with that knowledge empower our children to be way better and way more resilient than we were.
Kind of leads into a question here which completely contradicts what I've just said, but this is again from another parent saying that my child says I can't a lot. So this isn't the can-do attitude we've just talked about, it's a bit more of a I can't do attitude when new things arise. And how can parents support that child to have a go?
So the I can't culture is usually around confidence. And so what happens in basic human nature is we do stuff, and then some of the stuff that we do, other people recognise as being good. So they say, oh, that's brilliant. You're really good at that. You're really good at making models. You're really good at painting. You're really good at dancing. You're really good at hopping. So then what you do as a child or as an adult is you do more of that stuff because you get this positive affirmation, it releases endorphins. And sometimes children can get themselves in a channel where they are really good at something and they've been labelled as really good at something. And so they've got a high level of confidence. But then it becomes really risky to try something else, because what if you're not as good as that? What if you're not going to get the affirmation, the praise? And this is not always a conscious thought process for children. They're not thinking, I'm not going to try that in case I don't get that really positive affirmation. Their subconscious brain is basically saying, stick to what you know you're good at, because that makes you feel good. Avoid the things that you're not sure about. And some children don't have that, but some children do. And that's where they often will say, oh, I can't, or I don't want to, or I'm not sure. And again, it's about building confidence. It's not about saying, well, you have to, or you should, or you must. It's about saying, okay, what is it about it that you're not sure about? Now, when I'm feeling not sure, and this is not going to be an easy fix in one kind of conversation, but when I'm not sure, these are the things I might try having a little go of that. How about you watch me have a go, and I'll tell you how I'm feeling. And so if you recognise that in your child, then what you're going to do is kind of coach them through strategies for what you do if you feel like you can't, or you're just nervous about not being able to. And again, that takes time. And if you can get other key members of their kind of family, whatever that may be, to also model those strategies, the more people the children see doing that, then the more normal and typical it becomes, and the more they're likely to use it.
So talking about when things go a little bit awry, so this is an example where my child becomes sad when things, when they hear things around them that are upsetting to them. That, in the example that we've been given here, is sort of a row in the home. I think we've got a couple of feisty adults that quite often end up in a bad mood with each other, and that can upset the child. So thoughts around impact of that and strategies for that as well.
Yeah, and again, there are all sorts of elements to this. So there's the element of if your child is indicating to you that when you behave like that, they find that upsetting, then obviously it's about trying with your partner to acknowledge that and say, if we need to have those discussions, can we do it when the children are not here? I'll just give you a steely look for now and not speak to you, but let's resolve it later. But also with anything like that, or the news, or whatever it may be, the children here, the really important thing is that we try and be a filter for what is the truth and what they think they know. So the first thing to try and find out is what your child thinks they know. So where is the upset coming from? How is their 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old brain interpreting what has just happened? And then in that respect, you can either correct misconceptions or you can strategize around the fact that sometimes you might say when you're at playgroup or when you're with your sister or she's taking your toy and it makes you feel cross and you've got a knot inside, sometimes mummy makes daddy feel like that, but only sometimes, and I love mummy, blah, 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 and when I feel like that, and so you can kind of extrapolate what that is and how it happens. So trying to find out what your children know as opposed to what you think they know, and then take your cue from that, because sometimes what you can do if you go in with an assumption is give them way more to worry about because you're telling them things that they haven't yet
they've not even picked up on. Yeah.
So start with a child and then try and give strategies around. Don't pretend, if something's happened, then don't pretend it hasn't happened, but give reasons that a child can understand as to why it's happened, and then model behaviours about why and how you can resolve that.
Cool. We have got loads of questions, so are you all right with me just
I'm
carrying
good.
on?
I'm good.
Okay, so my child takes easily to most new things, especially physical stuff. But recently she was asked to do a forward roll, couldn't do it, and had an absolute meltdown and would not try again.
Okay, so again, that's very much linked to confidence, and it's very much linked to children becoming good at something, assuming that they are good at something, and that kind of God complex around, gosh, I can do anything. We want our children to feel, they can conquer the world, and then they come across something. So what's lacking there are strategies for when things go wrong. Because if a child only does things they're good at, not very much goes wrong. So therefore, they don't get to encounter failure, so therefore they can't recover from failure. And again, failure, we're using in a positive way. We need to change the concept of failure, because, I might think if you failed, that's a bad thing, because that means that you're unable to do what you set out to do. But actually what we want our children to think is failure is a positive. It didn't work out the way I thought it was going to work out, but I've learned loads from that and I'll do it differently next time. So there's a real culture around the use of the word fail. So if you know you've got a child who tends to just do the same things because they're really good at it and you want them to feel that sense of accomplishment, it's about also trying to tempt them outside of that kind of lane of accomplishment, but give them strategies around failure. So if they did have a complete meltdown and say, I'm never doing that again, then it's not about saying, yes, you are. It's about saying, okay, can we talk about that later on, maybe bath time, not in the moment, when they haven't got that kind of self-control and their emotions are really high. What they don't need to hear then is some sagely advice about if at first you don't succeed, try again. Because they're just really upset. They just need to that's fine. We don't need to do that now. It's okay. But at bath time, bedtime, whenever they are ready, you can say, right, talk to me about how that made you feel. Right, let me tell you about a time when I felt like that. And let me tell you about what I do. Because sometimes you will do things that don't work out as you think they're going to work out. It doesn't make you a worse person. And you kind of try and scaffold around their experience and link it to things that they're going to understand.
I think we often talk about meeting a child's temper or meltdown or whatever the word a parent might use with our calm.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we need to be what we're hoping they'll become rather than meeting them in the same place that they are.
Well, it's literally like imagining when your child is at that stage, they're like a little ball of fire, and basically what you don't want to do is pour more fuel onto the fire. What you basically want to do is put the fire out. So even though as a parent, when a child is doing things like that, be it on the floor in Tesco's or whatever they're doing, or out at a restaurant and having a little screaming habdabs around something or other, is not to do that thing when your resilience isn't very high because your embarrassment's kicking in and you're thinking, right, I just need to resolve this situation. Actually, what they need is that kind of calm, bring it all down and revisit it later with strategy, not with punishment. Because if a child is behaved in a particular way It's not always that behaviour is a negative, it's that behaviour is an authentic development stage that your child is at. So meeting that behaviour with a punishment is often the thing that would take away opportunities for resilience.
Yeah.
It's meeting it with strategy.
And actually punishment, if the child has got no understanding whatsoever of what they've even done wrong, is just crazy, isn't it? It has no
well, it's like saying you
them.
do something in the morning, which means you're going to miss watching Peppa Pig at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, that's no good, because 3 o'clock in the afternoon's way over there and something else has happened. So yeah, it's about being real and immediate with little children in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a bit of feedback on the channel, is that what you call it? I don't think you do. Whatever we call it.
On the
anyway,
chat.
on the chat. So Jennifer has said, rows at home that they do have, they always make sure that they show that they've made up as well. So I think that's quite a nice way to think about it, because with the best will in the world, sometimes the row has just happened before we've been able to think about taking that row elsewhere.
And we talk a lot in My First 5 Years and in the app about being realistic parents, and realistic families have realistic fallouts because we are human beings. And so what we don't want to do is shelter our children, because there will come a time in their life where they then encounter that fallout. And so where are their skills for being able to recover from that? Yeah, they can only model what they've seen and what they know. Yeah. So we're not advocating doing it all day, every day, but it's part of life and it's realistic. Yeah. Another one here just says the idea of meeting a child with your calm. Took me a few years to master, but it definitely works, and it's such good advice. And, you know, I learned so much off you when we spent time together learning about children's development and learning that you have to respond to children in a developmentally appropriate way. We can't expect our children to be these perfectly behaved beings. They're not developmentally ready. So if we reframe what we see, it just helps us feel better and handle it better. And in terms of realistic parenting, you know, I've got 3 boys now in their late teens, early 20s, and, you know, I was their head teacher at school, and I've got loads of qualifications in childcare. Did I get unreasonably cross with my kids? Yes, I did. Did I sometimes raise my voice and say things to them which I probably wouldn't have said in a calmer moment because I was frustrated or tired or frustrated and tired? Yes, I did. But then did I go back and say, right, that was unreasonable, or I'm sorry I said that, or I could have said that better, or I didn't understand, or I didn't ask the question? Eventually, yes, I did. Not always straight away, but I think it's that idea that nobody out there is a perfect parent. And also the point of, if your children never experience that falling out to be able to fall back in, then that's really valuable. If they go through a perfect life where everybody gets on with everybody else, and everybody's friends all of the time, then they're going to have a big shock when they go out into the big wide world. So falling out with your child or your partner on occasion, but making the reparation and discussing the strategy is actually a positive for your child's development. But as Jennie says, we just don't recommend that you do it
all day, every day. So a couple more questions and then we'll probably wrap it up, because time flies by as ever. Should I force the matter if my child doesn't want to participate?
No. It's like you doing something and somebody forcing you to participate. Like when you go on those horrendous things at work and you have to do icebreakers. Hate icebreakers. And also, I don't want to do the icebreaker, but you have to do the icebreaker, and I don't want to do the icebreaker. So what I'm not then is in a position of saying, well, I didn't want to do it, but now you forced me, I'm loving it. It just makes you in a very kind of negative state. So if your child doesn't want to do something, and if they don't want to do a lot of things, so you work with children who maybe are entering social group situations like preschool, nursery, play group, and all they do is cling to your leg and watch. That's perfectly okay, because that's where they are in terms of their development. And again, it's about saying to your child, that's okay if you just want to watch, but then pointing out the positives, giving strategies for, talking about what you would do, modelling behaviour. So yeah, I wouldn't force your child ever to do anything, but try and build their confidence to a stage where they're prepared to have a go.
I think you do see that behaviour quite a lot at sort of children's parties, where, you know, you might have a child that goes in and just doesn't want to participate, and you quite often, as an adult, I think, feel you need to show that your child is willing to participate, that she's just the same as the other children there and having fun, you do start to feel like, what's wrong?
Yeah, and so we, at my first 5 years, have written a blog about that, about parties, about the fact that it's a content team. When we talked, well done.
I genuinely didn't forgotten about that.
When we talked about our own children's experience of parties, there were lots of members of the team, we've got lots of children between us, they were said, my children hated them. They never enjoyed them. It was always a trauma. Whereas others had children who loved the party and were in there and on it. But it's okay not to like a party. And it's okay for you not to do the thing as a parent where you feel obliged to get a Harrods party bag that's cost you about 50 quid per child and do this big extravaganza. That's more about parents than it is about children. If your child doesn't like parties, don't have them.
Yeah, one of the very best parties that I ever did was just a junk modelling party. It was the cheapest one as well. It was really good weather, which was unusual. Most of my parties it's raining. But we just put a load of junk on the table outside and just left the children to create all sorts of things. And almost every child loved participating in that. And I think the only other thing I did was stick some balls and footballs and things in the garden. And between the children, they figured out something they were interested in.
I mean, this is not a party off, but we once did a den making
You're
party.
going to say yours is better now, aren't you?
Just different. We did a den making party, which was literally, fabric, boxes, and what we said to the children was, work together, work on your own, build these massive dens. We're going to have our party tea in the dens. And again, it was just really open-ended. There was lots of good fun. It was a really good laugh, but it was a really simple idea that didn't threaten. Nobody had to take part in a game they didn't want to take part in. Because again, some children love a party game. The farmer's in his den, pass the parcel. And for other children, it's trauma. Because they don't want to be in the middle with everybody skipping around them. They panic about what's going to happen if the parcel stops with me and I can't get the wrapper off. So again, if your child doesn't want to get engaged with that, give them strategies, help to build their confidence, but certainly don't push the issue.
You just mentioned something there about open-ended resources, and sometimes the things that we give our children to play with can also really help them with resilience. And we talk a lot about open-ended resources versus toys that have one way and a right way only to play with them. It might be just worth exploring that idea just a little bit.
And it is, through all of the streams in the app, we really try and pick out this idea of, in the activities and interactions that we give you to work on with your children, and we're really clear that they're not all activities. So an activity sometimes feels a bit like, get these things out to make this thing, and so very much our activities are process driven, but often an interaction can be as valuable as an activity because you are sharing experience, you're just sharing a moment with a child. But in terms of things like resilience, if you have got a model to build and it's got 6 parts and you link the parts together and you build the model, done, job done, great sense of success. If you've got a lot of, like Jennie was saying, junk modelling resources, and you've got to work out how you fasten the egg box to the cereal box and it drops off because you put too much glue on, or your masking tape isn't strong enough, or you can't get the toilet roll tube to stand up like a chimney, or whatever it may be, that is lovely little opportunities to try and fail and strategize and have something modelled for you. And so what you're learning then are the really subtle and small steps to resilience, because you wanted to build this model, you tried loads of things, everything fell off, but it didn't matter, because in the end your model will look however your model looks given how it ended up, whereas the one that was in the box needs to look like the one on the outside of the box because that's what the model looks like. And whilst that's not, a bad thing for children to engage with, because there are some important processes you can learn by saying, there's an example of something I'd like to make, here are the parts to make it, I've achieved that by making what it looks like on the box. But what you want is a really good mix where a lot of the stuff that you do with children is about process, not necessarily end result, because in process comes the opportunity to try and fail, and within that comes the opportunity to build your resilience.
One of the things we talked about before we started this live was the importance of at least one adult in a child's life that they can absolutely rely on, and I'd say the fact that parents are engaging in our content probably means that this child has got an amazing parent in their life anyway, but sometimes that isn't the case, and that's where a teacher might step in. I remember Ian Wright, the footballer, when he got to meet the teacher that believed in him all those years ago, and how overcome with emotion he was. Of course I did. So it's that, being that one person for that child, and that's again part of them building their resilience, isn't
I mean,
it?
we're not talking specifically about attachment today, but that idea that for children to have really healthy relationships, they need to have had a healthy relationship. So at least one person that the child can rely on, where you've got that really positive bond. And also that as adults that we can be role models and model those behaviours. But rather than do it by kind of chance and osmosis, I think when we are thinking about building children's resilience and we are talking in our extended family, it's that idea that, yeah, we are, as a strategy to support the development of the children in our family group, whatever that may be, we are going to articulate as adults, aunties, uncles, grandmas, granddads, cousins, friends, whoever it may be, that we are imperfect beings, that we sometimes feel like this, but this is what we do. And we are modelling that kind of culture around self-care and strategies for resilience. Because in a time gone by, in certain societies, especially like in the small mining village in the northeast of England where I grew up, you wouldn't have sat and discussed strategies for resilience. You just got on and got it done because that's what you did. And that wasn't particularly healthy. So I think where we are moving to now as a society is a much healthier place where we are openly saying we're going to equip our children to have the best mental health that we can by giving them strategies, and even to talk about areas where we haven't been particularly successful, but how we've managed to kind of model that success.
Yeah, I've read somewhere you want to be that parent that your child is going to come to with their problems, not hide the problems away because they just feel that they're not going to be understood. So one takeaway, Alistair, what would your one takeaway be that you'd hope that parents that have had a listen to this half hour would really sort of link with resilience and aim to do at home?
I think the fundamental thread that resilience has got a really strong link to confidence. So trying to build confident children, and the way that you build confident children is by giving them lots of opportunities that are safe to try and fail, that they are in secure relationships, but also you model those strategies for them. But the more we can build their confidence, even if it's in very small steps, then the more likely they are to be resilient. And of course, as always, we've produced a lovely PDF for you to download following this live. And so that's got lots of details around the things that we've talked about, but also some strategies in it for supporting children to develop their resilience.
Yeah, so once you've downloaded that as well, we're more than happy for you to share that content with friends and family, or if you're a nursery or a childminder, we're more than happy with you to share that content with your parents, because the more that these messages get out, the better children's experiences are going to be. Our next live is Tuesday the 22nd at noon, and that's all about becoming creative. So we're going to see whether we can turn the live camera off slightly more successfully than last week, because it's out of our reach now, so we do have to go for a wander to do it.
From behind the news desk.
From behind the news desk. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thanks everybody. See you next time.
Bye.